Maya Brooks ran through the metal corridors of Station Arcturus like her life depended on it, and maybe it did. Her patrol mission had lasted 16 hours longer than planned, and she was late for the debriefing with command. Exhaustion pulled at her bones, but military discipline kept her moving forward through the crowded hallways. The station buzzed with activity as soldiers rushed to their posts, repair crews worked on damaged sections, and civilians tried to go about their daily lives despite the war that raged beyond the protective shields. 3 years of fighting the Krell Empire had turned this remote outpost into a fortress, and everyone who lived here knew that any day could bring another attack. Maya turned the corner at full speed, her mind already rehearsing the report she would give to her superior officers about the Krell movements near the border zones. She did not see the hooded figure coming from the opposite direction until it was too late. The collision was hard and sudden. Both of them went sprawling across the floor in a tangle of limbs and fabric. Maya hit the ground with a grunt that knocked the wind from her lungs. She lay there for a moment, trying to remember how to breathe while embarrassment flooded through her. She heard a soft gasp and looked up to see the other person scrambling to sit up. The hood had fallen back during the fall, and Maya found herself staring at something impossible. The woman before her had silver hair that seemed to glow with its own light, even in the harsh artificial lighting of the station. Her eyes were a brilliant violet color that Maya had never seen before in any human, and her ears came to delicate points at the tips, but what truly captured Maya's attention was the way the woman's skin seemed to shimmer, as if tiny stars danced just beneath the surface. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely alien. Maya expected anger, or at least irritation. She had crashed into this stranger and knocked her to the ground after all. But the woman's expression held neither of those emotions. Instead, her violet eyes went wide with something that looked almost like recognition. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but could not find the words then. The woman whispered a single word in a language Maya did not understand. The sound was musical and ancient at the same time. It sent shivers down Maya's spine, even though she had no idea what it meant. The woman reached out one hand as if to touch Maya's face, but stopped herself at the last moment. Maya noticed markings on the woman's exposed neck, intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with faint light. She had seen those symbols before in classified reports about ancient ruins discovered on dead planets throughout the galaxy. But those ruins were thousands of years old, and the civilizations that built them were long gone. The woman seemed to realize her hood had fallen. Panic flashed across her features, and she quickly pulled the fabric back over her head to hide her distinctive appearance. But it was too late, and Maya had seen everything. Before Maya could say anything, or even think of what to say, a low, rumbling growl echoed from the shadows nearby Maya's. Hand instinctively went to the weapon at her hip, but she froze when she saw what emerged from the darkness. The creature was the size of a large wolf, but that was where any similarity to Earth animals ended. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished obsidian, each one reflecting the corridor lights in rainbow patterns. Its eyes burned with an amber glow that seemed to pierce right through. Maya's soul's maw wings were folded tight against the creature's muscular back. They looked too small to allow flight, but Maya had the feeling that logic and physics might not apply to whatever this thing was. The creature positioned itself between Maya and the hooded woman with clear protective intent. Its lips pulled back to reveal teeth that could easily tear through combat armor. Maya remained very still. Her heart pounded, but her training kept her calm enough not to make any sudden movements. The creature watched her with an intelligence that went far beyond any animal she had ever encountered. It was judging her and deciding whether she was a threat. Woman placed one hand on top of the creature's head and spoke to it in that same musical language. The effect was immediate. The creature's aggressive posture relaxed, though it continued to watch Maya with those burning eyes. The woman murmured something else, and the creature made a sound that was almost like a cat's purr, but deeper and more resonant. Maya finally found her voice. "What are you?" she started to ask, but never finished the sentence because at that exact moment the station's alarm system erupted with deafening wails. Red warning lights flashed throughout the corridor, and the automated announcement system began broadcasting emergency protocols. Krell attack incoming. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted instantly as soldiers ran for their assigned positions and civilians scrambled toward the emergency shelters. Maya jumped to her feet and looked back toward where the woman had been, but she was already gone. Both the mysterious stranger and her impossible creature had vanished into the panicked crowd as if they had never existed at all, but Maya caught one final glimpse of silver hair as the woman looked back over her shoulder. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat, and Maya saw something in that violet gaze that she could not name. It was not hostility or fear, but something else entirely. Something that felt almost like curiosity, or perhaps recognition then. The woman disappeared around a corner, with her creature following close behind, and Maya was left standing in the middle of the evacuation, wondering if the collision had actually happened or if exhaustion had finally caused her to hallucinate. The station shook as the first Krell missiles impacted against the shields. Maya forced herself to focus on the immediate crisis and ran toward the pilot-ready rooms. She was a reconnaissance pilot, and that meant she would be launching within minutes to engage the enemy fighters. Whatever had just happened with the mysterious woman would have to wait, but as Maya suited up and climbed into her fighter's cockpit, she could not stop thinking about those violet eyes and the way the woman had whispered that unknown word. She could not stop wondering about the creature with scales like midnight and eyes like fire. Most of all, she could not stop thinking about the markings on the woman's neck and what they might mean. The battle began, and Maya threw herself into the familiar rhythms of combat. Her fighter danced through space as she engaged Krell interceptors and protected the larger human ships. But even as she fought for her life, a part of her mind kept returning to that corridor and that impossible encounter. Who was that woman, and what was she doing on a human military station? Where did that creature come from, and why did it obey her so completely? And most importantly, why had the woman looked at Maya with recognition as if she had been searching for her? Maya did not know the answers, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was not over. Somehow she would find that mysterious woman again, and when she did, she would get answers to all the questions that now burned in her mind like the amber eyes of that impossible creature. The battle raged on around her, but Maya Brooks had already begun planning how she would track down the silver-haired stranger who had appeared in her life for one brief collision and then vanished like a ghost. She did not yet know that this hunt would lead her into a war far older and more dangerous than humanity's conflict with the Krell. She did not know that the woman's surprise at seeing her was just the beginning of a mystery that would change the fate of the entire galaxy. Maya survived the battle with the Krell, but the victory felt hollow. 12 human fighters had not returned to the station, and the repair crews estimated it would take weeks to fix all the damage to the outer hull. But Maya barely noticed any of it because her mind was consumed with thoughts of the mysterious woman and her impossible companion. She started her investigation carefully at first. Maya checked the security footage from the corridor where the collision had happened, expecting to see clear images of the silver-haired woman and her creature. Instead, the recording showed only Maya running down the hall and then falling as if she had tripped over nothing. The woman did not appear in the footage at all. Maya expanded her search and found reports from other soldiers about strange sightings in the lower levels of the station. Shadows that moved wrong. Sounds that did not match any known machinery. Glimpses of something large and dark with glowing eyes. But Command had dismissed all these reports as stress-induced hallucinations caused by the constant threat of attack. Nobody believed the stories, and Maya understood why. Without proof, these tales sounded like the products of exhausted minds pushed too far by war. But Maya had seen the woman and her creature with her own eyes, and she knew they were real. The markings on the woman's neck haunted her dreams, and Maya spent hours searching through classified archaeological databases trying to find matches. 3 days after the collision, Maya's fighter squadron received orders to escort a supply convoy through a contested system. The route took them near a small moon that scanners showed as uninhabited and worthless. But the Krell had other plans, and they attacked the convoy with overwhelming force. Maya's fighter took multiple hits in the opening seconds of the ambush. Her shields collapsed, and her engines failed. She managed to eject before the fighter exploded, but her escape pod's trajectory sent her crashing into the surface of that supposedly uninhabited moon. The landing was rough, and Maya felt something crack in her ribs as the pod bounced across rocky terrain before finally coming to rest. She climbed out of the wreckage with her emergency beacon activated and her sidearm ready. But the beacon's signal was being jammed by Krell interference. Help would not be coming anytime soon. Maya assessed her situation and realized it was bad. She was alone on a hostile world with limited supplies, and Krell soldiers would be coming to finish what they started. Moon's surface was barren rock under a dark sky. There was barely any atmosphere, and the temperature was dropping fast. Maya activated her suit's life support systems and began moving away from the crash site. She needed to find shelter before the Krell troops arrived. She had made it maybe 2 kilometers when she heard the distinctive sound of Krell dropships landing nearby. Her heart sank as she counted at least 5 ships, which meant 20 or more soldiers hunting for her. Maya found a cluster of large boulders and took cover behind them. Preparing to make her last stand, the Krell soldiers appeared as dark shapes moving across the rocks with practiced efficiency. They were between Maya and any possible escape route. She checked her weapon and found she had maybe 30 shots before the charge pack ran dry. It would not be enough, but she would take as many of them with her as possible. The Krell moved closer, and Maya prepared to fire. Then the sky above her erupted with light and sound as something massive swooped down from above. The creature was enormous, and Maya recognized it instantly, despite the fact that it was now 10 times larger than when she had last seen it. The obsidian scales reflected the moonlight, and those amber eyes burned with fierce intelligence. The dragon, because that was the only word that fit what Maya was seeing, opened its jaws and unleashed a beam of concentrated plasma that turned Krell's soldiers to ash instantly. The other soldiers scattered and began firing their weapons at the flying creature. But their shots seemed to bounce off its scales without causing any damage. Then Maya saw her. The silver-haired woman appeared on foot, running across the rocky terrain with impossible grace. Her hood was thrown back, and her hair streamed behind her like a banner of light. She held no visible weapon, but as Maya watched, the woman raised one hand, and energy seemed to gather around it, forming shapes that looked almost like blades. The woman, Maya remembered she had introduced herself as, moved through the Krell soldiers like a force of nature. Her energy constructs cut through armor and weapons with equal ease. She created shields of pure light that deflected enemy fire, and her movements were so fast that the Krell could barely track her. The dragon continued its assault from above, while Arya fought on the ground, and within minutes, the Krell force was decimated. The few survivors retreated to their dropships and fled, while Arya and her companion let them go. Then Arya turned and walked toward Maya's hiding spot, as if she had known exactly where the human pilot was the entire time. Maya stood slowly with her hands visible to show she meant no threat. Arya stopped a few meters away and studied her with those brilliant violet eyes. The dragon landed nearby with surprising delicacy for something so large and folded its wings. Watching the exchange, why did you save me? Maya asked carefully. Arya tilted her head as if considering how to answer in words Maya could understand. Shared enemy, she finally said in accented but clear English. Krell hunt you and Krell hunt me. Enemy of enemy is Alamaya. Looked at the dragon and then back at Arya. What are you really? Arya's expression turned sad. I am Ethel. My kind are dead now, killed by Krell long ago. I am last of my people. The dragon made a low rumbling sound, and Arya placed a hand on its massive head. This is Ember, she continued. He is my bonded companion. We search for something that Krell stole from my people. Something that could end this war between Krell and humans. Maya wanted to ask 1,000 questions. But before she could speak, her suit's sensors detected more Krell forces approaching. Arya must have sensed it too, because she looked toward the horizon and frowned. More enemies come. She said, we must survive together or die separately. Maya made her decision in an instant. Then we survive together. What do you need me to? Daria actually smiled at that, and Maya felt something warm bloom in her chest at the sight. Stay close to me and trust Ember to protect you. We will hold until your people come for rescue. The next several hours were the longest of Maya's life. Wave after wave of Krell soldiers attacked their position, and each time Arya and Ember drove them back. Maya contributed what she could with her weapon and her tactical knowledge of Krell combat patterns, but she was mostly in awe of the power and skill that Arya displayed the mysterious woman could manipulate. Energy in ways that seemed impossible. She created shields that absorbed incoming fire and redirected it back at attackers. She formed weapons from nothing and used them with deadly precision. Her connection with Ember was seamless, and they fought as one perfect unit, but Maya noticed that each use of these powers exhausted Arya. The markings on her neck and arms glowed brighter with every shield she raised and every energy construct she formed. After the fourth wave of attacks, Arya was breathing hard and moving slower. The dragon too seemed tired, though he never stopped protecting them. When the fifth wave came, Maya saw Arya stumble and knew they were running out of time. She moved to support the alien woman and fired her weapon at the advancing Krell soldiers, buying Arya precious seconds to recover. "Thank you," Arya whispered between gasping breaths. Maya helped her to cover behind a rock formation. "What happens if you use too much power? The glow fades and I die," Arya said simply. "All Ethel have limits." "I have pushed mine too far already." "Then stop," Maya insisted. "Let me fight," Nymeria shook her head stubbornly. "You will die in seconds against this many, and I did not save you just to watch you fall now before." Maya could argue. The sound of human engines filled the air. Rescue ships appeared over the horizon and began engaging the Krell forces with missiles and energy weapons. The cavalry had finally arrived. Daria could have disappeared then. She could have taken Ember and vanished into the rocks, leaving Maya to be rescued alone. Instead, she stayed and continued fighting until every Krell soldier was dead or fled. Only when the human soldiers secured the area did Arya finally allow herself to rest. The rescue team found Maya sitting beside an exhausted silver-haired woman with a massive dragon laying protectively nearby. The soldiers stared in shock, but Maya waved them off. "She is with me," Maya said firmly. "She saved my life as medics treated Maya's injuries and prepared her for transport back to the station." Arya approached one last time. Ember walked beside her, looking much smaller now, as if he could control his size at will. Before she vanished, Arya pressed something small and metallic into Maya's hand. "Coordinates," she whispered. "If humans want to survive, they must remember what they have forgotten. Find me there when you are ready to learn truth." Then Arya and Ember were gone, disappearing into the rocky landscape, as if they had never existed. Maya looked down at the device in her hand. It displayed a set of spatial coordinates that pointed to an uncharted region of space, far from any known settlement. Maya closed her fist around the device and made a silent promise. She would find Arya again, and she would learn the truth about the Ethel and the Krell and the ancient war that still echoed through the galaxy. Their paths had crossed twice now, and Maya had the feeling that fate was not done bringing them together. Maya's return to the station created chaos. Admiral Kate Morrison called her into a private meeting within hours of her debriefing, and Maya found herself facing the most powerful military officer in the sector. "Tell me everything about this alien woman," the Admiral commanded, and Maya did. She described Arya and Ember in detail and explained how they had saved her life. The Admiral listened without interrupting, and when Maya finished, the older woman pulled up classified files on her desk display. "What I am about to show you cannot leave this room," Morrison said. "Seriously, the files contained images from archaeological sites scattered across dozens of worlds. Every site showed the same intricate markings that Maya had seen on Arya's skin. Every site contained technology that human scientists could not fully understand or replicate. The Ethel were real," Morrison explained. "They were an advanced civilization that vanished thousands of years ago. We have been studying their ruins and trying to reverse engineer their technology since before the war with the Krell began." Maya's mind raced with implications. "You think the war started because both sides wanted Ethel technology?" Morrison nodded grimly. "The Krell have been finding the same ruins we have, and both sides have been racing to claim whatever advantages we can find. Your alien woman might be the key to understanding all of it." The Admiral assigned Maya to a black operations team led by Commander Lisa Grant. Their mission was to locate and secure Ethel sites before the Krell could claim them. But Maya had her own agenda, and it involved the coordinates that Arya had given her. 2 weeks later, Maya's team arrived at the uncharted planet, marked on Arya's device. The world was covered in crystalline forests that grew like twisted glass sculptures reaching toward the sky. At the center of the largest formation stood the entrance to a massive underground structure. Arya was waiting for them at the temple entrance with Ember at her side. The dragon was larger again, as if he grew to match whatever threats he anticipated. Arya looked tired but determined, and Maya felt her breath catch at seeing the alien woman again. "You came," Arya said with what might have been relief in her voice. "I gave my word," Maya replied. Arya led them into the temple, and the deeper they went, the more Maya understood why this place had been hidden. Holographic displays activated as they passed, showing images of a civilization at its height. The Ethel had been beautiful and powerful, and they had used their abilities to keep peace across the galaxy. Records showed how the Krell had feared that power and how they had launched a coordinated strike against every Ethel world simultaneously. Billions died in the attack, and the few survivors scattered across space trying to preserve what they could of their culture and knowledge. Area. Daria translated the displays for the human team, and Maya watched emotions play across the alien woman's face as she relived her people's destruction. "This is why I search," Arya explained that Ethel created something called the Lumina Core. It was designed to disable weapons without killing and could stop wars before they truly began. "Where is this core now?" Commander Grant asked. Taria opened her mouth to answer, but never got the chance, because Lieutenant Natalie Cross pulled a weapon and shot Commander Grant in the back. The commander collapsed and chaos erupted as Cross revealed herself as a traitor. Cross activated a communicator and spoke rapidly in the Krell language. Within minutes, Krell soldiers were storming the temple. Arya reacted instantly, creating energy shields to protect the human team, while Ember grew to fill the corridor and held back the invaders with plasma breath. Maya grabbed the fallen commander and dragged her to safety while the rest of the team engaged the Krell forces. Cross had disappeared in the confusion, taking partial data about the Lumina Core's location with her. "We must leave," Arya shouted over the sounds of battle. "This place is lost." The retreat was desperate and bloody. Ember took damage to one wing while protecting them, and Arya exhausted herself, creating barriers to cover their escape. They made it back to their ships, but the Krell forces pursued them. Relentlessly, Maya piloted the damaged shuttle while Arya tended to Commander Grant's injuries and Ember's damaged wing. The dragon had shrunk down again to fit inside the small ship, but his breathing was labored, and his scales had lost some of their shine. "Will he'd be okay?" Maya asked with genuine concern. Arya stroked Ember's head gently. "He will heal, but slowly. Dragons are tough, but not invincible." They managed to escape to a hidden facility that Maya knew about, a medical station used by intelligence operatives. The doctors were shocked when Maya brought in an alien woman and her wounded dragon, but they followed orders and treated all the injured. While Arya recovered, Maya received devastating news from Admiral Morrison. The Krell had decoded the partial data that Cross had stolen, and they had located the Lumina Core. The enemy was assembling their entire war fleet to retrieve it from the Ethel homeworld. Humanity had to make a choice. They could flee and abandon this sector of space, or they could fight alongside Arya to reach the core first. The decision would determine the fate of not just humans, but potentially every species. The Krell threatened. Maya sat with Arya in the medical bay, while Ember slept nearby, his wing bandaged and his breathing steadier now. "I'm sorry I brought this to your people," Arya said quietly. "The Krell hunt me, and now they will hunt humans harder because of it." Maya shook her head. "We were already at war with them. You did not start this conflict. You just gave us a chance to end." Itaria looked at Maya with those violet eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding deeper than words, they had become more than allies in these brief meetings. They'd become friends bound by shared danger and mutual respect. The question now was whether that friendship could save them when they faced the full might of the Krell Empire at the dead homeworld of the Ethel. Maya did not know the answer, but she knew they would face it together. Admiral Morrison called with the decision. Humanity would commit its fleet to the mission. It would help Arya reach the Lumina Core, or they would die. Trying, Maya felt both dread and hope at the news. The final battle was coming, and she would face it beside a mysterious alien woman and her wounded dragon against an empire that had already destroyed one civilization. The odds were terrible, but Maya had learned something important in her encounters. With Arya, sometimes the right choice was not the safe choice, and sometimes friendship was worth risking everything to protect. The preparation for the final battle consumed the following weeks, and Maya found herself at the center of something unprecedented. Arya agreed to teach select human pilots her people's energy manipulation techniques, and Maya was first in line to learn the training sessions took place in an isolated section of the medical facility where Arya had been recovering with Ember. The dragon watched every lesson with those intelligent amber eyes, and Maya got the impression he was evaluating her. Worthiness, energy is everywhere, Arya explained during their first session. The Ethel learned to sense it and shape it to our will. Humans have the same potential buried deep in your genetics. Your ancestors may have encountered my people long ago. Maya closed her eyes and tried to feel what Arya described. At first there was nothing, but then slowly she began to perceive something like a current flowing through and around everything. It was subtle and hard to hold on to, but definitely real good, Arya encouraged. Now reach out and try to touch it. Gently Maya extended her awareness toward the energy, and for just a moment she felt it respond. A tiny spark of light appeared in the air before her hand, then fizzled out. But it had been there, and Maya felt a surge of triumph. Arya smiled with genuine warmth, and Maya realized how rare that expression was on the alien woman's face. You have natural talent. Most humans take days to create even that small light. Over the following days, Maya's abilities grew stronger. She learned to create small shields that could deflect projectiles, and she could sense energy flows well enough to predict when attacks were coming. It was exhausting work and left her drained after each session, but Maya pushed through the fatigue. Ember seemed to approve of her progress, and one evening, after training, the dragon approached Maya directly for the first time. He lowered his massive head and allowed her to touch his scales. They were warm and smooth like polished stone. This is great honor, Arya said softly. Ember does not allow strangers to touch him. He has accepted you as part of our pack. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, though she could not explain why the gesture moved her so deeply. What does it mean to be part of a dragon's pack? Means he will protect you as he protects me, Arya replied. If anything happens to me, Ember will ensure your safety. It is the dragon way of bonding. Maya looked into Ember's amber eyes and saw intelligence and kindness there, along with fierce protective instincts. Thank you, she whispered to the dragon. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was rallying the human fleet for the mission. She revealed the truth about the Ethel to the military council and argued passionately that humanity had a duty to help. Arya recovered the Lumina. Corsum council members objected. They saw Arya as a threat who was bringing destruction to humanity's doorstep. Others wanted to flee and abandon this entire sector of space to the Krell. The debate raged for days while Maya trained with Arya, and time slipped away. Finally, Maya could not stand it anymore. She demanded to speak before the council, and Admiral Morrison granted her request. Maya stood before the most powerful people in humanity's government and spoke from her heart. We did not come this far into space just to run away from danger. She began, yes, the Ethel brought this conflict to us, but they also bring hope. Arya could have let me die on that moon, but she saved me. She could have taken what she needed from our databases and left us to our fate, but instead she offered to teach us. Maya looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. The Ethel were peacekeepers once. They used their power to protect those who could not protect themselves. Now humanity has a chance to continue that legacy. We can be more than just survivors scratching out existence in the darkness of space. She thought of Arya's tired face and Ember's wounded wing. She thought of the holographic records showing the destruction of an entire civilization. She thought of the children who would grow up in a galaxy dominated by the Krell. Humanity chose cowardice. Now the Ethel philosophy was simple. Maya continued, power is not about domination, but about protecting the innocent. If we abandon Arya now, we abandon that principle, and we abandon our own humanity in the process. The chamber fell silent when she finished, and Maya worried she had overstepped badly. Then Admiral Morrison stood and began to clap. Other council members joined her, and soon the entire chamber was applauding. The vote was called, and humanity chose to fight. Every available ship would join the mission to the Ethel homeworld. It was a massive gamble that could leave human space defenseless if they failed, but it was the right choice. Maya returned to Arya with the news and found her sitting with Ember in the training room. The dragon had healed significantly, and his wing was almost fully functional. "Again, we are coming with you," Maya announced. "The entire fleet is preparing to jump to your homeworld." Arya stood quickly, and Maya saw tears gathering in those violet eyes. "Why would humans risk so much for a stranger and a dead civilization? Because you are not a stranger anymore," Maya said simply. "You are my friend, and friends protect each other." Arya closed the distance between them and pulled Maya into an embrace. It was brief but fierce, and Maya felt the alien woman trembling slightly. "I have been alone for so long," Arya whispered, "carrying the weight of my entire people's memories and hopes. Sometimes I forgot what friendship felt like." Maya held her tighter. "You are not alone anymore. Humanity is here, and we will stand with you." Ember made a sound that was almost like a purr of approval, and both women laughed through their tears. The final preparations took another week, and during that time Maya and Arya became inseparable. They trained together and planned strategy together, and in the quiet moments, they simply talked. Arya shared stories of what the Ethel had been like before the genocide, and Maya talked about growing up on Earth and dreaming of flying among the stars. And the eve of departure, they stood together watching the stars through the station's observation windows. Tomorrow, they would jump to the Ethel homeworld, where both the human and Krell fleets would arrive simultaneously. The battle would be massive, and many would not survive. "Are you afraid?" Arya asked, quietly terrified. Maya admitted, "But also strangely at peace. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together." Arya nodded and placed her hand over Maya's. Ember lay at their feet, watching the stars with ancient eyes. They stayed like that for hours, just being present with each other. Before the storm one morning came, the fleet prepared to jump. Maya suited up in her pilot gear, and Arya donned armor that had belonged to her people. Ember had grown to his full, enormous size and would fly alongside. The human ship's Admiral Morrison addressed the entire fleet over comms. "Today we fight not just for humanity, but for the memory of a people who once protected this galaxy. Today we stand with the last Ethel and her dragon against an empire built on genocide. Today we show the Krell that some things are worth dying." Fourth Fleet jumped, and Maya's last thought before entering hyperspace was that she was glad she had accidentally bumped into a mysterious woman in a corridor weeks ago, because that collision had led her here to this moment where she would help decide the fate of the galaxy. Alongside a friend she would die to protect. The Ethel homeworld appeared before them like a monument to loss. The planet that had once been a paradise was now a wasteland of glass and ash. Cities frozen in crystalline states from the weapons that had destroyed them. Oceans turned to solid surfaces that reflected no light, but orbiting the dead world were thousands of ships. Ancient Ethel vessels still powered by automated systems that had waited millennia for their creators to return. The sight made Arya weep, and Ember howled, a sound of grief that echoed across communication channels. Krell fleet arrived moments after humanity did, and the two armadas faced each other across the void with the dead world between them. But before either side could fire the ancient defense, systems activated massive energy constructs appeared in space between the fleets. They resembled geometric patterns of pure light, and they began scanning both groups of ships. Arya had warned them this would happen, but seeing it was different from hearing about it, the defense's test intention. Arya explained over open comms. Pure aggression triggers destruction. Peaceful approach under Ethel guidance grants passage. The Krell either did not understand or did not care. Their war fleet opened fire on the energy constructs with every weapon they possessed. The response was immediate and devastating. Beams of concentrated light struck Krell ships and reduced them to expanding clouds of debris, more than half. The Krell fleet died in seconds as they continued their futile Assault against defenses designed by a civilization far more advanced than either humans or Krell could comprehend. Follow me. Arya commanded and began guiding the human ships through the defensive grid. It was like navigating a maze of lethal beauty. Maya piloted her fighter close to Arya and Ember, while the larger human ships followed the path they blazed. The energy constructs scanned them and found no hostile intent. They passed through untouched behind them. The surviving Krell ships tried to follow, but without Ethel guidance, they triggered the defenses repeatedly. By the time the human fleet reached orbit, less than a quarter of the Krell force remained, and those ships were damaged in desperate area. Led a strike team down to the surface, including Maya and a dozen elite human soldiers. They landed near a temple that rose from the crystalline landscape like a prayer made solid. Ember landed beside their shuttle, his size now that of a small starship Krell. Ground forces were already there, led by the traitor Natalie Cross, and a massive warrior that Arya identified as Warlord Thrax himself. The Krell commander stood 3 meters tall in powered armor and carried weapons that crackled with stolen Ethel technology. The battle began immediately. Krell soldiers fired heavy weapons at the approaching humans while battle mechs stomped forward. But Ember unleashed his plasma breath, and Maya's team returned fire with disciplined precision. Arya moved ahead of them all, creating shields that absorbed incoming fire and redirecting energy back at attackers. Her markings glowed so bright they were visible even through her armor, and Maya could see the toll it took on Hertha. Fighting was brutal and desperate as both sides pushed toward the temple entrance. Human soldiers fell despite Arya's protection, and Krell mechs collapsed under concentrated fire. Maya used her newly learned abilities to shield teammates and sense incoming attacks, but it was not enough. They reached the temple entrance together, and the battle became even more intense in the crystalline corridors. Ember was too large to follow, so he remained outside, holding back reinforcements while Arya and Maya's team pushed deeper in the heart of the temple. They found it. The Lumina core was a crystal the size of a human, easily 3 meters tall, and it pulsed with energy that made Maya's teeth ache. But Warlord Thrax was already there, with Cross and a dozen elite Krell guards. Arya and Thrax faced each other across the chamber, and recognition passed between them. "You killed my family," Arya said, in a voice colder than space itself. Thrax laughed and responded in accented English. "Your people had to die because they would not let others be free. The Ethel controlled the galaxy with their self-righteous peacekeeping." "No," Arya replied. "We protected the weak from predators." Like youth fight that followed was beyond anything Maya had witnessed before. Thrax wielded weapons forged from stolen Ethel technology, and he knew how to use them. Arya met him with pure energy constructs, and for minutes they were evenly matched, but Arya was exhausted from the battle outside and her earlier injuries. Slowly, Thrax gained the advantage, pushing her back step by step. Maya tried to intervene, but Cross blocked her engaging. In their own desperate duel, Maya fought, with both her weapon and her abilities creating shields and sensing attacks, but Cross was well-trained and experienced. They were evenly matched until Maya made a mistake and Cross's blade cut deep into her side. Maya collapsed, bleeding heavily, and through blurring vision she saw Thrax about to deliver the killing blow to Arya, who knelt exhausted before him. "No." Maya screamed, and somehow found the strength to create an energy shield between them. The barrier held just long enough for Arya to recover. She struck back with renewed fury and drove Thrax away from the core, but both warriors were near collapse. Maya crawled toward the Lumina core despite her injury. She could feel the energy radiating from it, calling to something deep in her genetic memory. Arya saw what she was doing, and horror crossed her face. "No," Arya cried. "To activate the core requires an Ethel life force. It was designed as a last resort, knowing the user would die." Maya reached the crystal and placed her bloody hand against its surface. She felt the core respond to her touch, analyzing her hybrid abilities that came from Ethel teaching and human determination. Then, maybe two people sharing the burden could survive. Maya gasped through the pain. "We do this together or not?" Arya stared at her for one long moment, then made her decision. She abandoned her fight with Thrax and ran to Maya's side, placing her own hand on the core beside Maya's. Crystal erupted with light so bright it was painful to look at directly. Energy flowed from both women into the ancient device, and Maya felt Arya's consciousness merge with her own. For a few eternal seconds, they were one being sharing thoughts and memories and emotions. Then Ember was there too. The dragon had somehow forced his way into the temple, and he placed his massive head against the core, adding his own life force to the bond. Three beings from two species connected through crystal and Wiltha Lumina core. Activated fully, and light exploded outward through the temple and across the planet and into space itself. The wave of energy washed over every ship in orbit and continued expanding toward. The Krell fleet beyond every Krell weapon stopped functioning. Every Krell ship's engine went dark. Every piece of Krell military technology simply ceased to operate. Across the battlefield, Krell soldiers collapsed unconscious, but alive their combat. Suits suddenly inert the human ships remained operational, protected by Arya's guidance through the core, and the battle ended not with destruction, but with silence. Maya opened her eyes and found herself lying on the crystal floor. Arya was beside her, also alive, but changed. The Ethel woman's markings now included swirls of color that matched Maya's skin tone, and when Maya looked at her own arms, she saw faint glowing marks beginning to form. Ember had doubled in size, and his consciousness touched both women's minds constantly now. They were bonded permanently, the three of them connected in ways that went beyond words or species. We did it. Maya whispered in wonder. Arya helped her sit up, and they looked at each other, seeing themselves reflected in each other's eyes. We are something new now, Arya said. Human and Ethel and dragon, all bound together. The aftermath came quickly. Admiral Morrison arrived with medics who treated the wounded, while Krell prisoners were secured peacefully. With their homeworld's location now known, and their fleet disabled, the Krell had no choice but to negotiate. But Morrison chose mercy over vengeance, following Arya's example. The peace treaty included reparations and demilitarization, but also provisions for truth and reconciliation. The galaxy had seen enough genocide. Maya recovered from her injuries while Arya and Ember stayed close. They discovered 12 stasis pods hidden deep in the core temple. Inside were surviving Ethel and their dragon companions, preserved since before the genocide. When the pods opened and the survivors saw Arya alive and the war ended, they wept with joy. The Ethel were not extinct, and they had a chance to rebuild with humanity as allies and friends. Maya was offered command of her own ship, but she refused. Instead, she and Arya founded something new, called the Guardian Corps. They would use Ethel principles and human determination to protect the innocent across the galaxy, and became their symbol in other humans. Began learning energy manipulation from the surviving Ethel. A new generation was growing up with the potential to bridge the gap between species and philosophies. Months after the battle, Maya and Arya stood before the rebuilt Ethel's settlement on humanity's capital world. Children from both species played together while young dragons soared overhead. It was the future neither of them had dared to hope for. You know, Maya said with a smile. All of this started because I accidentally bumped into you in a corridor. I laughed, and the sound was pure and joyful. I was searching the galaxy for someone who could help me carry this burden. Instead, I found a sister.